Hi, everyone. Today we're going to talk about why we're seeing so much anxiety in kids. And I've really talked about this topic before, but it really has to do with this world that is so fast paced that we're living in now. So when parents come to me looking for support, a lot of them are saying that their kids are struggling. They're struggling so much with the ability to manage small transitions through the day. They're struggling with changes. They're struggling with sleep. They're struggling with just honestly getting through the day. And yes, parenting has to do with it. And yes, your child's temperament has to do with it. But today, what I really kind of want to highlight is that a lot of what's happening is that your kids' nervous systems are built for a child, and the world that they live in, the pace that they live in, is kind of more built for adults. So there's a really big mismatch that's happening there, and it's really kind of creating anxious kids. Anxiety is showing up in behaviors more than words, right? So our kids don't come up to us and say, "This feels too much, I'm overwhelmed," or "This feels too rushed." They're really going to signal just through their behaviors. So things we're seeing happen is difficulty falling or staying asleep, somatic things like stomach aches and headaches. They're also melting down a lot more. They're also having a really hard time handling small disappointments or moments that feel challenging. It's almost like you feel like they're always on the verge. These are actually just signs that their nervous system is shot. It's dysregulated. So it's really not about your child themselves. It's about what their body is actually communicating to us. Our kids' nervous systems are actually created to look for predictability, rhythm, routine, repetition, right? And if we really kind of think about what's happening in our child's day, it's not a lot of that. It's a lot of kind of rushed mornings, packed afternoon schedules, lots of stimulating screen time, and rushed bedtimes. Our kids' nervous systems are really wired for repetition, for rhythm, and for predictability and slowness. And this really goes against the world that we kind of put them in, which has to do with we wake up and our mornings are really rushed and fast and out the door and to school. It's this adult urgency that we place onto them. Then they leave school and it's overpacked schedules in the afternoon. Then it's the whole bedtime shebang, which also always feels like so much happening just to get them to wind down. And then we also have this surge in the use of screens, which are really overstimulating. So while their bodies and brains are wired for this slowness and repetition and rhythm, we're actually giving them a lot of chaos. One thing to know about after school activities is that although some of them can be really good and look regulating, we still want to kind of understand when a child's day feels balanced versus when it feels like too much is happening. And I want to say that this also depends on the child. So I know there are kids who do well with more activities, and there are kids who really need a lot more timeouts. But when I talk about a balanced day, you want to look at like how much sleep your child has, how much downtime, how much just focus time, how much nutrition they're getting, and how much physical movement and activity they're getting as well. You also want to think about having unstructured playtime. And this is actually one of the most underused and undervalued kind of tools we can give our children. And so because we're packing their day so much, there's not really time for that. And in the unstructured playtime is actually where they developed other skills that they're not developing otherwise, which are things like knowing how to navigate boredom. What comes from boredom is creativity, problem solving, critical thinking. So much can happen from giving them the space to just be and exist and not requiring them to do something or follow an instruction or give them directives. A child's nervous system is kind of like a cup, and we keep pouring into it and pouring into it without having the ability to pour it out. Eventually, it's just going to overflow, and that will look like this anxiety, these meltdowns, this collapse a lot of times. Something else I wanted to point out is that it's not just their own kind of structured day and schedule that's affecting them. It's also our stress as parents and adults they are absorbing from our own nervous systems. They are biologically wired to pick up on their caregiver's body language before the caregiver's words. So this is like they are picking up on our micro expressions, on our body positioning, on our tone of voice, on everything happening with our own nervous system. And this is adaptive. Like they have to know which adult feels safe and when to come close versus when to stay away. So really part of their nervous system regulation has to do with how our nervous system is showing up. And I know this can feel a bit overwhelming for parents to hear because I know it puts a lot of kind of pressure on us, but it's also a beautiful window of opportunity where you can be the person that is helping to slow down your child and your child's body and nervous system. So it really is where we are setting the tone ourselves, and that's really important. You're going to hear a lot of people talk about like giving your kids great coping skills and tools for regulation, things like creating a calm down corner with lots of things they can use for regulation, or teaching them breathing techniques. These are all really good strategies, but kind of zooming out big picture, what our kids are really needing is not more things to do. It's actually shift in the environment, right? If we keep them in this really fast-paced, overwhelming world, just giving them extra tools isn't really solving the problem because, again, we're not respecting the pace of their bodies. So figuring out where we can kind of cut down on that adult urgency in our homes is actually the biggest gift you can give your kids. So one is figuring out what we can change in schedule. How can we make our mornings slower? How can we actually greet our kids without this sense of, it's a new day, we got to go get dressed, eat your breakfast. Like this is a really triggering to your child's body to wake up to. And it's not really how we want to set the tone of the day. That's number one. Number two is we want to look at their after school schedule. Is it really packed, like I said before, full of activities? Do you feel like they're going to be left back or not gain a certain skill set because you don't put them in something, starting really young? This isn't really what the priority is for them. Often they have a lot of socialization, enough socialization in school where they don't necessarily need so much more than that. I know in specific cases, there are kids who are getting a lot of benefit, for example, from being on teams and team sports. And yes, so like that's really great, but we have to look at big picture things and say, weigh the cons and the pros and say, what is the biggest takeaway from here? Like, is my child developing social skills, but are they constantly run down? Or is it better for me to kind of leave more space for them to just come home, to decompress, to catch up on their homework, to have time to just exist, be a kid without having to run around? And sometimes that second option, even though it's not the most popular and not the one that most parents subscribe to, sometimes that second option is actually what's going to anchor your child. And then lastly, like I said, it really has to do a lot with our own stress and what we're bringing to the table, right? So like how we are showing up around our kids when we're picking them up for carpool. Let's just give this quick example. A lot of times it's like they walk in the door and we are interrogating them, right? We are like, who did you play with? What did you have for lunch? How did you do on your test? Like it's very intense. And this child has just come from a full day of school where they've had to really perform in many ways, socially, academically, really behaviorally. They've had to perform all day and they're ready to this would be like come home and like take off your bra, right? Like they're ready to come home and decompress, yet they're met very often with a parent whose intensity level is very high. So I actually just started making this change in myself with my toddler because I noticed that when I would I pick her up right before she does her afternoon nap. I pick her up and I used to ask her if she ate lunch, what she ate, who she played with, because we feel like this is what they need in terms of connection. But when I was able to, one, talk to my friend who's an occupational therapist, and two, really kind of feel a little more secure in my relationship with her, I noticed that connection really meant being able to just be attuned to her body. That is connection. So connection isn't always do more. Sometimes it's do less, and sometimes it's just meet her where she is. So she comes exhausted. So what I've started doing now is really just kind of letting her know I'm so glad to see her. I missed her so much. And then it's mostly a silent car ride, which is so against what I think we've been taught or wired to do. It's silent. I put on sometimes some light music. Sometimes I'll bring her a snack, but it's not the time to really rev up her system. It's really just being able to read her cues that this is time for slowness. And one of my goals for the next year is really to kind of create this feeling in my home in general. Something that I like to share that my therapist told me a couple of months ago was I work out very early. I leave my house at 5:45 in the morning. And for some reason, by 5:45 in the morning, I am rushing out the door with like a coffee in my hands, spilling over. I am opening the car door so aggressively. It's like putting on my seatbelt so aggressively, like reversing so aggressively. And my therapist told me, like, why are you doing this? Why are you basically telling your body that there's an emergency? Because this is how you're behaving. You're behaving without intentionality, without slowness. You're behaving with urgency, right? And all of these behaviors that we're doing so intensely, so aggressively, are really communications to our body of you got to turn on. You've got to be active. You've got to be on scanning for threat, right? And so this is a micro example of how we're probably showing up a lot of times in front of our kids or even for ourselves in our house. So I've really tried to work on just the way I enter my car. And I swear it makes a huge difference because it's just like nothing's going to change if you get in very intensely and aggressively, or if you get in very calmly and intentionally. But what will change is how your nervous system is reading that. So I love this as a small example for you to be able to generalize to how you're showing up for yourself throughout the days, how you're eating your meals, and then how you're showing up for your kids and having the expectations you're having around the day with your kids as well. I want to tell you about this app that I discovered that is super helpful. It's a parenting app and it's called Wizer, Wizzer. It's a parenting app that uses AI to give you personalized support for hard stuff like tantrums, sleep struggles, screen time battles, and many more things. It provides 24/7 expert-backed tools and real-time coaching. It also helps you raise kids with empathy, emotion regulation, and life skills that matter the most. They believe that no parent should feel alone, and that's why they created this safe, judgment-free community to connect and grow with other people who get it. They are providing my listeners with a 2-month free trial with a promo code BLOOM2FREE. That is BLOOM number 2 FREE. I want to take a quick break from this episode to share more about my services offered at Hatch and Bloom. Whether you're seeking personalized one-on-one guidance or insightful group learning, we have the right support for you. Our private sessions provide you with the tools and strategies needed to support your child's growth. So take the next step in nurturing your child's potential and book a session with me today. Please visit hatchandbloom.co. That's .co. Or you can email me at evelyn@hatchandbloom.co. Now back to the episode. A couple more quick tips that I wanted to give you guys is one is choosing rhythm over rigidity. So yes, predictability is super important for kids because this is what helps their bodies feel safe when they know what's coming next. I love when there's a certain order that they know in their routine. So in their mornings, in their afternoons, around bedtime, they know what to expect. Where I want you guys to maybe feel like we can be flexible is in the exact timing of things. So this is where we don't have to be so rigid. We can be more flexible. Things can happen in a certain order, but they don't have to happen in exact timing. Another kind of helpful tip is having fewer transitions. Like we don't realize how neurologically consuming transitions can be for kids, going from one thing to the next, to the next. In fact, it actually takes a lot for a child's brain to kind of wrap around closure of something and moving on to opening something else. So if we can think about, especially around the mornings and around the evenings, if we can think about like not having so much fluctuation and just kind of smoothing how many things we're putting in or how often we have to change locations. Sometimes it's even while we're in the bathroom brushing our teeth and doing potty and all this stuff. This is where we're dressing our kids. Like we're not making them move back and forth so much. So fewer transitions is going to be more helpful for the body. And then lastly is really, I'm such an advocate for this. You're always going to hear me say this. Protect unstructured time. This is, I feel like, something that is lessening for our children, yet it is so valuable in their development. Okay. So again, boredom is priceless. Boredom doesn't mean that you have to entertain your children. It means it is a space for them to just be. And in this space, they get to decide, does my body need rest? Does my body need slowness? Does my body need to create something new? Does my body need to solve a problem? Does it need to come up with new ideas? But this is something for them to figure out. So yes, we can support them in this process, but the idea isn't for you to just create another opportunity where you're just directing their entire time. Okay, so really backing off is going to be more helpful. So if you see, the main theme of this episode is actually about doing less and how that is going to gain more for your children. So less anxiety for everyone, less urgency for everyone, slowness, intentionality, not perfection, but more of a rhythm. Hey everyone, it's Evelyn. Thank you so much for tuning in. Your support truly means the world to me. If you're interested in hosting a parenting workshop, I'd love to connect. Whether it's a private session for parents, a school event, or a corporate workshop, I'm here to help bring valuable insights and strategies to your community. Let's chat and make it happen. Please visit hatchandbloom.co. That's .co. Or you can email me at evelyn@hatchandbloom.co.